The first two ways you can use blocks for, so if you don't have blocks at home, just go ahead and skip to the second two ways. We're going to go ahead and start with one block against a wall on the tall and narrow setting, and then stack 2 blocks on top of that on a short, wide setting. And squeeze the bottom block between the palms of your hands, and then place the crown of your head down between your wrists so that the back of your head is up against the block. You'll tuck your toes and lift your hips, walking your toes in, and your shoulders should eventually make contact with the upper blocks. You're going to go ahead and draw both knees into the chest and try to keep the tops of the thighs as close to the chest as possible. See if you can hold this shape before eventually trying to extend both legs overhead. When you do, squeeze through the thighs. Gotta keep pressing down through the forearms, lifting the shoulders away from the ears. When you eventually want to come out, you'll draw the knees down towards the chest, coming down with control, lowering the feet and shins. The second way we'll practice with blocks is tripod headstand. You might need to put 4 blocks down, so 2 underneath those on the low setting. You're going to bring your shoulders on top of the blocks, so there's a little weight in the head, and walk your fingertips back so that you can see your fingers in your field of vision. And then eventually bring the knees on top of the triceps. Start to lift the knees off of the triceps. And then eventually you can start to straighten the legs, and you have that wall there for support. And you want to make sure you don't let the elbows splay out to the sides here. Keep them stacked over the wrists. And if you want to try any different leg variations, you're feeling fairly stable, go ahead and play around with that. To come out, gently lower the same way with control. Trying to get the knees as high into the triceps as possible when you lower. And then gently lower down. Good, so we say bye to the blocks, and I'm going to break this down a little bit more extensively without them. Good, so tripod headstand, once again, you're going to bring the crown of your head to the mat, and you want to make sure you can see all 10 fingers in your field of vision, elbows over wrists, just like chaturanga arms, so 90-degree angles. You'll tuck your toes, lift your feet, lengthen through the backs of the hamstrings. And then bring your knees up to the triceps, trying to keep the knees as close to the chest as possible. You'll press down to lift shoulders away from ears and use your hip flexor strength to gently lift the knees off the triceps and extend them overhead. Okay, keep squeezing through the inner thighs, the inner ankles, point the toes if you can. And when you lower, you'll use that same hip flexor strength with control to draw the knees as close towards the armpits as possible, and then gently lower the shins and feet down to the mat. A traditional headstand without a block, you're going to interlace your fingers. I like to release my pinky fingers as a little kickstand, but that's personal preference. You're going to bring the crown of your head down between your hands or wrists, and then you want to have little to no weight in the head here, so keep pressing down through the forearms. You'll tuck your toes, walk your feet in, trying to get the hips to stack over the shoulders. And then check back in. If your shoulders have been sinking down towards the ears, lift them back up. Now, if you really want a strong headstand, the trick is to break the habit of kicking. So one exercise is just to, don't do this. So this is what not to do, lifting the leg overhead. Because it might feel really easy and accessible, it's not very safe because we don't have the stability yet. So we do the hard way to learn. We draw both knees into the chest. We are squeezing them in, and for many of us, our tailbone is still slightly tucked, and you might think this is way harder, but it's really great to build the stability first. Once you feel comfortable, maybe do some crunches where you lift the knees up and lower them back down. And then eventually, if you feel pretty stable, you can start to practice extending the legs. But those crunches, when you lift the knees up and down, sort of reference where your knees naturally want to go. They want to lift up. The difficult part is bringing them back down. Now, if you have done all these exercises and feel good in them before you do headstand, you might feel comfortable enough to move the legs around. Maybe even do the reverse of our crunches, doing sort of like a boat pose upside down. So you have the knees where they are and you just straighten the legs and rebend them without moving where the knees are, without touching the ground with the toes. And then if you're feeling like you've had enough headstand, you can come down and give yourself a thumbs up.